what makes a good developer? Have you thought about this? Do you consider yourself a good developer? Or if you manage a team of developers, what do you think makes a good developer? I mean, is it that he or she has great technical skills? Maybe they can collaborate with other developers, to achieve something greater together? Is it ability to innovate, to do things that nobody else can do? Is it, I don't know, the code is super high quality, or is it super clean? It can pass Brian Sen's review, source code review. That's hard. But it could also be softer skills, right? Like listening skills, or it's a good teammate, right? Or even much more important, brings donuts, right? Who doesn't want a good developer who brings donuts, right? Or is it something else? So how about this? How about understanding what provides business value? Yeah, you all look, kind of like this. Yeah, no, right? So, I don't know. That's the way I've looked over the years. Whenever Brian Chung has come to me and says, hey, you have to understand the business value. I'm like, what? No, I just want to care about code, right? Brian, does this look like my face most of the time? Yeah. So I have to thank him because he's been insisting and insisting and insisting. And over time, I think this has grown on me. And I'm here to confess that I now believe that developers must understand the business needs. And why is that? Well, I'm going to talk about the new features of Liferay DXP and CE 7.2 to all of you, right? And when you go back, then you're going to find some business user at your company, someone like this, and that person is going to ask you, what's new in 7.2? And then you're going to be all excited. Oh, there's this new framework and this new API, and it's so awesome, right? But then she's going to ask, hey, should we upgrade? And can you justify the cost of upgrading? Well, and we at Liferay have been trying to lower the cost of upgrading and make upgrades as simple as possible. But there is always a cost, right? And you need to be able to justify. So what I'm going to try to do is not only talk about the features in 7.2, but I'm going to try to explain why we've built these features and why we think it will provide value not only to you as developers, but also to your organizations. And hopefully that'll help you solve this thing that many of you tell me after all of our events, which is, oh, this version is awesome, I really want to use it, but there is no way my management, my business people will approve it. So my goal with this presentation is that not only you get excited about this new release, but you get equipped with the right arguments to be able to convince anyone why it's a good idea to upgrade to Liferay 7.2. So let's see. So one thing that Brian keeps saying is that when we talk about digital transformation, it must include the whole experience. What does that mean? Well, one typical analogy is the iceberg, right? So Liferay is a digital experience platform. It's built for creating websites on portals and intranets and all sorts of things. That's the customer experience, right? But then for a customer experience to work, there is a bunch of other work that needs to happen under the hood, which is the digital operations, or the operations in general. If we are talking about digitalization, then the operations must become digital. And we need to think about those two things as we develop new versions of the product. So let's focus on the first, the tip of the iceberg, the part that is visible, right? So yet another thing that Brian insists a lot is, in order for a user experience, for a customer experience to be good, you need to acknowledge that there is going to be many touch points, many interaction points for your users, and they all need to be connected, and they all need to be consistent. And that's something we are keeping in mind as we develop new features. So an example that Brian has mentioned in the past is this, right? It's an example of a success story of a business creating a customer experience. In this case, through a customer experience to facilitate renewal when you move to a new house, then 40% of the people that used to leave an energy company now are not leaving. That's awesome, right? Your business people will love seeing this. However, there is a problem with that you should all be aware of, which is All of the business people have seen this, and everybody is doing digital experiences. So just by creating good digital experiences is not enough anymore. And that's where we become more and more relevant. Because in order to be successful, businesses need to be agile, to be able to evolve and optimize continuously all these experiences. So how can Liferay help with that? Okay. First, no-brainer. Our goal is to provide a platform where creating these digital experiences is as quick and as fast as possible, right? That's something you could have guessed. The second one is probably a subtle change, but that we believe it's very relevant, right? And it has to do with developers. We want to empower developers. That's what we've been doing all these years. That's one of the key reasons why Liferay has been successful. We empower developers to do more and more. Now, the subtle difference, if you pay attention to this sentence, is we want to enable developers not only to build solutions, but to empower business users to be able to create their own experiences, to be able to be more autonomous, to be able to do more on themselves. Because that way, it's not just the developers being able to optimize continuously those experiences, but the business users can be part of it. And then what we've realized is, if you want to optimize, you need to know if things are working or not. And that's really, really hard to do. It's really hard to have a big data environment and AI technology to be able to analyze tons of data. And that's why we've introduced some new products like Liferay Analytics. But I won't get into that in this presentation. So when we think about a customer experience, as I said, it's not only about creating. You also have to be able to personalize if you want to be successful, because almost everybody else is doing. And then you need to be able to measure what's working, what's not, and optimize. And then create again, or modify, update, and all over again. So let's go over the features of 7.2 and how they contribute to this cycle. Creating experiences. Well, Brian has shown the before 10 years ago and the after of what building a website in Liferay looked like, right? So right now, especially in 7.2, we've fulfilled a project that we've been talking about for the last 2 DevCons, which is the Modern Site Building project. And it's really, really empowered business users to do much more. One of the things that we provide is out-of-the-box components that our users, the users of Liferay, the users of the systems you build on top of Liferay, can use right away to create a site. And it's all visual, right? And while they have power, one of the things that we are paying a lot of attention to is business users should be able to do a lot of things. They should have autonomy. But that doesn't mean we should let them do anything, because then they get in trouble, and that's not something they want either, right? So with these improvements, creating a website in Liferay is completely different. This is what it looks like in case you haven't seen it yet. So first of all, you can drag and drop both fragments and widgets into a page. Then you can do inline editing, both for text and for images, and preview exactly how it looks. You can have a visual layout editor, so layouts don't have to be done by a developer anymore, right? And you can not only do inline editing, but you can select existing structured content or documents or blog entries and display them and define through fragments visually how it will look. And all of this, as you add more fragments, with completely realistic preview, even with the CSS of your custom theme. So this has really changed the experience of creating a website, a page, or any type of experience. Now, I've said that we provide out-of-the-box fragments, but Liferay has always been about empowering developers. And creating fragments is something that we've also invested in to make as easy as possible. So this is how it looks in the product. And we also have an editor. So a fragment, for those of you who don't know yet, is just a combination of HTML, CSS, JavaScript. We really want any web developer to be able to create fragment easily. They don't need to have any Liferay specific knowledge. If you have Liferay specific knowledge, you can do some advanced things, which is great, but you don't have to. Now, this editor, I was surprised yesterday because someone at the conference was telling me, I love this editor, I use it all the time. And I'm pretty sure for some people that's great, but most front-end developers, most web developers, what they tell us is, I just want to use my tools. So we built the Liferay Fragments CLI, or Fragments Toolkit, which is just a command line tool that allows developers to just use VS Code, which is probably the most popular IDE for web developers. And they can just use this, develop, automatically deploy. You can even do a preview that sends the code to the server, sends it back, and as you are coding, you can see how the real, executed by Liferay fragment, in case you have something dynamic, such as a widget, how it looks as you are developing. It is really, really cool. And I have a confession to make. So when Gartner started talking about experiences, and Brian would bring this up, I used to say, like, digital experience platform, what does an experience mean? Like, is it a site? Is it a page? Is it a mobile app? I can buy that. It's a mobile app, right? Those are cool. Is it a WhatsApp? What does experience mean? You have to be more specific. And it's probably been, when I've seen these tools be used, when I've seen what developers do with fragments, that goes well beyond what I could imagine a page or a site would be. That's when I've really seen, in reality, just sticking with whether it's a page or not doesn't make a difference. And now I'm starting to see how really the word experience, it's really becoming more important for me, because that leaves things open to your imagination. So don't get stuck into it's a site, it's a page, it's what does the end user need, or what will satisfy what they need to do. And this is really empowering you guys to provide that. So we've been talking about this experience editor or page editor, if you want to stick with more technical terms. But existing content is also very relevant, right? So we have content sets as a new feature, which basically allows defining lists of content, for example, highlighted entries, and then pick a few entries specifically. So if you have known Liferay for a while, you're probably familiar with Asset Publisher. So you can think of content sets as part of what Asset Publisher can do, but completely decoupled from how it's presented. And the whole goal of this is so that you can reuse those lists of content, those feeds of content, if you want, across pages, across different apps, like mobile apps, digital assistants, anything. It's the same definition, and you can reuse it across any experience that you may want to create. And we've seen an example of manual editing, but obviously we also have dynamic selection, right? For example, if you want to say the latest corporate news, right? You're not going to handpick them every day. You're going to do a dynamic selection, select a web content. You might want to select a specific structure. In this case, we'll just go and say, hey, any web content that has the corporate tag. And then I order it by publication date, right? Because it's the latest. And again, I can reuse this across anything that is backed by Liferay. At the end of the day, what is the business value, if you want to talk about business value of this feature? It's accelerate time to market and ensure consistency, that the same list of content is displayed across everything. If we're talking about content, then we need to talk about authoring content. If we're going to talk about authoring content, then we talk about structured content. And we've invested in improving and making it easier for content authors to just focus on their content, so that they don't have to fight with the tool. They can just focus on their content and then get done with it. And one of the things, as we've been talking with more and more content authors, that they've been asking us for is, I want to be able to preview my content before publishing it. Liferay has potentially complex workflows that can be put in place before a content is actually visible. You can have a scheduling, you can have drafts, you can have pending in a complex workflow status. And previously, it was not so easy for content authors to be able to preview it. So we've introduced this tool, Content Preview, which allows previewing a content anywhere, wherever it's used or it's going to be used, before the actual publication is done. And once the content is published, then the next need is, where is it published? As you may know, Liferay allows publishing a content through a variety of ways. So we've introduced a new tool which allows for each content to see in all of the places where it's already being used. And if you have made a modification that is currently still in draft or scheduled for later or going through workflow, through this tool, you can also preview that content in that specific place with your latest edits. So really powerful. And not all content is structured, so we also have documents. So we are integrating with Google Docs and with Office 365 so that it's possible to either start the creation of a new document or edit an existing document directly with those tools. So that's all for creating things, creating content, creating experiences. Next step, as I said, is personalization. So why personalize? So these are the words that you'll hear more from business people. You want to increase customer capture. You want to increase conversion. Well, many of you are actually from governments, large institutions, universities. For those, probably personalization is not used as much. But if you are a consumer of the government services, you'll see that there are tons and tons of services, most of which are not relevant for you. So this is a great opportunity to personalize so that the experience for your citizens, for your students, it's much better. So we want to democratize the access to this personalization. And the way we're doing it is we're integrating segmentation first inside the product, out of the box. So if you were familiar with audience targeting, all of the features of audience targeting and more are now part of the product. And that means that it's also part of CE. So it's no longer a DXP only feature. It's part of CE. And if you have Liferay Analytics, you can also connect it to Liferay Analytics, and then you have all the intelligence of Liferay Analytics as part of your segmentation. And then what do you use that segmentation for? For personalization. And we've reinvented the way personalization is done. So you just select here a high-end driver. This is a page that you've created. And this is the key. Using the exact same experience to author a page, we can customize it. A business user directly can come and customize the whole page instead of being piece by piece like audience targeting used to do. And then select, a high-end car. Or they can change the navigation, maybe choose a different menu to guide this type of user so that you focus exactly on the things that you believe that user will be most interested in. Or you can even add a specific fragment for this segment of users, for example, with a deal. Right? This is really powerful. You can see the difference between the two. Not only pages can be personalized, but also content sets. We saw content sets before. So it is possible to write different sets of content, again, reusable across all of the pages, mobile apps, devices that use this content. You will reuse the personalization across all of them. And the final feature that I want to mention related to personalization is auto-tagging. So auto-tagging is using machine learning to take text or an image, which is most impressive, and it's what you are seeing here, so that you upload an image, and automatically it's going to add some tags to display that it's indigo bunting. So we've implemented a small algorithm based on TensorFlow that comes out of the box. Although for production, especially if there is a lot of content, we recommend using either Google's or Microsoft services, which we also provide out-of-the-box integration with. Measuring and optimizing, that's the next step. Okay? So we are introducing, coming with SP1 of 7.2, this is DXP-only feature. It's A/B testing integrated into the product. So for any page, a business user can say, hey, I want to increase the bounce rate so that my users don't leave, or that they click a button. I want to say, this button, I want to increase the number of clicks in that button. So all he needs to do, or she needs to do, is create a variation. And then using, again, the exact same tools, inline editing, create one or as many variations as desired. I want to split 33% among 3 variations here, and I want to be 95% sure that this variation is the best. And once you are done, here it estimates around 15 days to complete that, then let me know which one works better. At the end of the day, it's ensure that whatever experience is really achieving the business goal that is created for. And this is integrated with Analytics Cloud, again, to provide intelligence. Right? Not only experience can be optimized, search is very important, especially if you are in the commerce business. So we are introducing several relevant features so that you can optimize what your users are finding when they search specific things. What you want to do is ensure that when your users are looking for something specifically, if they are using the wrong word or not the word you were expecting they would look for, you can use synonyms or you can just reorder the results so that they find what they really are looking for when they use those sentences. Okay, so we have the whole cycle, but we've also talked I've also mentioned how there can be many different devices. How do you connect all those experiences? And we talked about this last year, and this year we're happy to say that this is ready. So for the longest time, Liferay has been what you can think of as a traditional CMS, although we had good APIs. But with this new trend of headless APIs, then the APIs got to a whole new level, right? And we believe that the best of both worlds is actually a decoupled system, a decoupled CMS, a decoupled platform, where you have awesome APIs. They are not an afterthought. It's really API first. But then you can also use the UIs and everything that I've shown you before. So we've introduced a new set of APIs. And people are already building amazing things. This is already available in 7.2 and 7.1 if you are using 7.1. And two of the most common use cases is just build very custom front ends for specific use cases. You want to use SPAs, Angular, React, Vue, whatever. And you want it outside of Liferay for very specific reasons. And then we're also seeing a lot of new channels, like digital assistants. We're seeing more and more demos with digital assistants, and you're going to be able to see a demo with a digital assistant in this event. So we tested out our APIs to make sure that they cover those use cases. And we ended up implemented two different sets of APIs that are actually consistent with each other. They use the same object model. One is GraphQL, which is loved by front-end developers and very used with Angular, with React, and also REST APIs with OpenAPI, that it's very, very versatile. Both of them are based on standards or de facto standards with very strong adoption and tooling. That's a key thing. And it has very advanced features to allow building real-world applications, not just demo applications. And of course, very strong security with OAuth 2. There is also a very interesting talk by the security team here to talk about OAuth 2 and the different protocols that it supports. So we talk about customer experiences. Now, processes, those digital operations. Well, this is probably where Liferay excels compared to our competitors, right? Why? Because we empower you guys to be able to connect, to extend Liferay, to connect to existing systems. Those APIs can be used to integrate with anything. So this has always been a very strong point for Liferay. Now, we've been thinking, what can we do to improve this, right? And we've been talking about the need to be agile, the need to be fast. So we are introducing a set of new tools so that as much as possible, at least for the most common cases, it's not necessary to actually develop or develop a lot to be able to build certain applications. So there are two components to that. The first one is data. So we're introducing in 7.2 a new concept called data engine. What data engine is, at its core, it's basically a way to define a data model to store objects of any time, and that definition of data is done through an API. Instead of doing SQL, you just use an API to create a data model and update it over time. And then it's easier to build certain type of data-oriented, form-based applications on top. For example, this is a real demo that Liferay uses. It's called RayLife, and it's just for notifying of an incident in an insurance company, right? So this is a form. It's form-based. And this has been built off top of data engine. It's just an SPA. And using, again, an API, it just connects to the data engine. It's one of the REST APIs that I mentioned before. Connect to the data engine. And it allows those developers to be much more agile because front-end developers with less knowledge of the backend can really do this on their own. And when it gets really, really powerful is when you connect it to workflow. And as you know, Liferay has had for a long time a workflow engine. And what we are adding to it so that it can really empower this type of business applications is metrics. And specifically, what we've tried to add is the ability to define SLAs. Because in this type of processes, SLAs are really important. Basically, what we want to do is ensure that it's possible to say, hey, this process or this specific stage in the process needs to be done in 15 days or in 5 days or in 5 hours, and then get metrics to see if that's really working or not, because that's a very common feature for this type of digital operations. So it now comes out of the box, and this is just the beginning. You'll probably see some additional talks talking about this and what comes next, which is a tool called App Builder, and that it's really, really powerful. So we've covered the tip of the iceberg and what's below, water. But at the end of the day, what you guys do is take all of that. You take the customer experiences, the digital operations that we provide, that you build on top, and then you just want to put it in a pretty box, and that's your solution that you deliver to the customer. So we're also investing in making it easier for you to do that quickly. How is that done? Well, first, this is something that I heard actually quite a lot yesterday at that conference, which is, hey, we love Liferay, but what our people are telling us is it's really hard to find Liferay developers. Well, what we believe the goal is being a Liferay developer is awesome. All of you guys, or most of you guys, are Liferay developers, and that means you can do awesome things. You can extract the most out of Liferay. However, it should not be necessary to be a Liferay developer. By that I mean to be able to know Liferay-specific knowledge to be able to develop an application like this. In this case, it's an SPA. So we've introduced a set of tools so that a front-end developer with no knowledge of Liferay can develop any SPA. This is one example. And then using just the regular tools from Angular, from React, from Vue, or whatever. Or if you are a Java developer, just using Spring, or CDI, or JSF, you can develop your application reusing your existing knowledge, and we, at Liferay, we will take care of the heavy loading. So we are doing things such as, on deployment, automatically converting a React app, an Angular app, or a CDI app that's coming a little bit later, into a Liferay app that can communicate with the OSGI modules and the OSGI components in Liferay, even if you have no idea what OSGI is. At the end of the day, what we want to empower you is to be able to put that application as a widget so that the business user can just take it and put it anywhere they want on the page using this page editor that we've been showing before. That's a dream, and that's really something that we believe we've achieved in this release. Now, that's the development side, and we really want to make it easier, especially for backend developers who still want to use Liferay and do more with Liferay than just a front-end tool. We want to make it easier to first set up the environment. So in Liferay Workspace, it is now possible to leverage the official containers that Liferay provides and deploy directly to them. So forget spending a lot of time setting up the Liferay environment. You can just deploy to a Docker image, which really speeds up the setup of development and testing environments for developers who don't necessarily know about Liferay yet. And then, once it's ready, Liferay Workspace also allows taking that base image, take your development on top, and then create a container for your specific solution built on top of Liferay. And then, once it's done, you can deploy that container to DXP Cloud or to other cloud providers that support Docker or other supported container technologies. Summing it all up, Liferay DXP, together with Liferay Commerce, if you have commerce needs, allow building a lot of types of solutions. So we are simplifying that process through the features that I've mentioned, providing more agility. We are simplifying the process of deployment with DXP Cloud, and to provide more information to those business users, we are building intelligence on the cloud with Analytics Cloud. So if we are to sum up the features that enable this in Liferay DXP 7.2 is we are providing more and more out-of-the-box features, both for developers, which we've always done and we will continue to do, and also for business users to create, personalize, and optimize those experiences. We also want to start setting the foundation to make it easier to build digital experiences, digital operations, without having to code, at least for the most common cases. And I want to insist on this to end. We want to continue empowering you guys to develop solutions in a way that it's not just the final solution, but where you are actually providing autonomy, for example, through fragments, through widgets, providing autonomy so that your business users can actually optimize, customize those solutions without having to call you for any small detail. That will make you very happy, you have less boring work, and that will make them extremely happy, more agile, and more successful. Thank you.